Morning, my name's Simon, welcome to Bennett's Bike Social, welcome to the gorgeous south of France, and welcome to, see if you can guess, Harley Davidson's 2024 launch of their new Road Glide and Street Glide.
Welcome to the first few miles on these bumpy French back roads of Harley Davidson's 2024 touring range, comprising, for the purposes, excuse the bumps, for the purposes of this, comprising the Street Glide and the Road Glide. We are currently sitting on the Street Glide, and there are some Road Glides that I will ride later on. I haven't had a chance to ride one yet, but as usual what I'm going to do, gravel, is whistle through the spec and then talk about dynamics of the bike after I've ridden it properly. Now, yeah, Harley Davidson, eh? Harley Davidson. If any bike, I don't think any bike or any brand is so deeply embedded in the psyche of certainly the general motorcycling public, I would say. It's certainly in the minds of the public. I think if you stopped a random stranger in the street and said, name me a motorcycle, they would probably say Harley. And it's interwoven with the culture and the history and the lore of motorcycling. But it is a culture unto itself. It is a separate subculture. It has its own language. It has its own internal logic, to be honest, because the things by which we normally judge most motorcycles, the empirical things, the handling, the performance, even comfort, civility, none of that really applies to Harley Davidson, in the sense that people don't buy them really for any of those things. They buy them because they're a Harley. I think more than any other manufacturer, you're buying into the brand, whatever that means. We're talking, I don't know, what we're talking, lifestyle or image, whatever it is. And I think, to be perfectly honest, all of us have got a little bit of Harley in us. Because we've all been exposed at some point in our lives to what that actually means, whether it's, I don't know, Evel Knievel jumping around, or try to think of other uses of Harley Davidson in popular culture. I'm sure there are plenty. So I think, yeah, we've all got a little bit of Harley, and I know that some people are sort of die-hard Harley enthusiasts and that's all they've ever ridden, that's all they ever want to ride, and that's fine. And I know a lot of people come to Harley from a variety of routes, some more likely than others. In fact, I would say probably the most likely route into the world of Harley, if you've not been there before, is someone who's come from sports bikes or naked bikes or even adventure bikes, who just wants to try this separate sort of subculture of motorcycling once in their life. I think, funnily enough, people who are in the Grand Tourer market, your Goldwing owners and maybe your Indian owners, I think those guys and girls probably already know what kind of bike they want and which brand they want to support. So I think, ironically, it's non-Harley riders who've probably got most to gain from a little bit of an explanation about what this bike is. Well, you've come to the wrong place, because it's not my forte either. But I've done a bit of research, you'll be pleased to hear, and I can tell you what this bike is, having rambled for a while. I'm sorry about the view, by the way. Because of the riding position, we're sitting so low in the bike, all we can see is this dash, I suspect. The GoPro probably hasn't got enough field of vision to get over the top of it. Not entirely sure what we're looking at, but anyway, it's not a bad view whether you're looking over at these mountains or whether you're looking down at these clocks, which I'll come to in a minute, because they are a significant part of the changes to the bikes for this year. So let's describe the bike. So you know, there are differences between the Road Glide and the Street Glide, and I'll get to them in a minute, but it is basically the same platform. And for 2024, that platform starts off with the engine. Now, it's fair to say that Harley are quite keen to paint this as a lot of last year's CVO, custom vehicle operations, the bespoke top end, the premium end of Harley Davidson's brand. They're the bikes that get all the updates first, they get the performance upgrades first, they get all the technology upgrades first, and then it filters down into the rest of the range. And it's fair to say this year, Harley are characterising the touring bikes as having some of that technology and that performance filtering down. It's not a blanket filtering down, because otherwise they'd have to revamp the CVO range, and they haven't done that. So what we get in terms of the engine is the Milwaukee 8117 cubic inch, which I think translates to about 1,923, what's that, 1.923cc engine, making a fairly significant 105 horsepower at 4,200 RPM or 4,000 RPM, and 130 pound-foot of torque at 3,250 RPM. Again, fairly classic Harley, those numbers are very close together. This thing is making more torque than power, and it makes it pretty close to where it makes peak power. So it is obviously one grunty engine, but it is significantly more powerful than its predecessor. I think that was making something like 80 horsepower and 100 pound-foot of torque, something like that. So this is a big increase in performance, engine performance, from a larger engine. What the engine is not is the 1970cc motor, or 1977cc motor from last year's CVO models with the variable valve timing. This is not that engine that has even more power. As I say, if they put that in this, then they'd have to upgrade the CVO range, which is not going to happen. So we have more power, but it's not quite the full fat yet. Obviously, you can upgrade it with various performance upgrades. But as I say, yeah, so the engine is loosely, very loosely, based on the 2018 Breakout, I think, was the first use of that 117 cubic inch motor. This is had a few changes. The crankcase is the same, the rods are the same, the crank's the same. There's slight differences at the top end. There's differences in the intake and the exhaust. Compression ratio's up. The way the spark plugs, I think, sit in the head is slightly different. So there are, it's an evolution, if you like, of that motor, and it is a little bit more powerful than that sort of initial Breakout engine. Someone's got their music on. I'll get to that in a second. So that's the motor and the improvements. Frame-wise, it is a new part number. It's the same kind of principle as the previous bike, but it has had some weight saved on it. I'm not sure how they've shaved that off. Swing arm 2 has been redesigned, and to the CVO spec, if you like. But what hasn't got CVO spec is suspension. CVO's got massive Showa upside down forks and Showa shocks. This has right way up forks, and it hasn't, the brakes are this not quite CVO spec either. That bike had 4-pot radial Brembos. This has, I think they're Harley badged Brembos, but they're axial, not radial. But it has inherited a whole bunch of technology and electronics from the CVOs. Everything from switchgear, which, if you think the Africa Twin's got a lot of buttons, check out this baby. There is a lot of activity for your thumbs there. You keep your thumbs very fit on a Harley. It has these incredible 12.3 inch TFT dash, which has 3 custom screens. I think this is the road screen, but you can have like a sport screen where it's just one central circular display. Obviously it has massive Bluetooth potential for multimedia. You can connect it to Apple CarPlay. Look, check this out. Can we make this open? Look, there's your tray for your phone. You can fit a tablet in there, and your Riz, the papers, and whatever else, your backy. Amazing. Yeah. So yeah, you can tether this thing to your phone, and it will give you maps. It's got sat nav. It's got Apple CarPlay. I can't remember if they said it's got Android. I'm not sure. I think it probably has. I can't imagine it won't have. So yeah, a full suite of electronics with full set of traction control. We've got 4 riding modes. We've got Sport. Stop sniggering at the back. We have road, I think it is. We have rain. Does anybody ride a Harley in the rain? I'm not entirely sure about that. And we have custom. I thought it already was a custom, but fair play. We have engine modes. And what else have we got? We've got a completely redesigned. We've got a re-aerodynamic fairing on both models. I'll just quickly mention the differences between the two. Now, the Street Glide, which is what I'm on here, is the biggest seller in the UK by about 70 to 30, Harley say. So that's the one that we're really focusing on, literally, in the case of this GoPro. And this has the I think they call this the Batwing fairing. because it has a sort of Batman's look to it, and it sits on the handlebars. It's not frame mounted. And the Road Glide has the sort of, I think they call it the shark fairing, because in profile it does look a little bit like a great white, I suppose. And that is mounted on the frame. There's been some significant weight saving. That is the other thing this year as well. Harley have really sort of been conscious about weight. They've saved about 8 kilos on the Street Glide, I think it is, and about 7 kilos on the Road Glide. The Road Glide is the heavier bike, possibly because of that extra bodywork. And I think I'm going to get this right. I think the Street is through. You've got to be careful, you know. Is 368 kilograms, and the Road is 380. I believe that's right. Don't shoot me if I'm wrong. Again, it's a mix and match of units, imperial and metric, and that's definitely kilos, not pounds. Well, having said that, is it? Anyway, so yeah, weight's different. What other sort of measurements have we got? Seat height, 715 millimeters on, I think this is the Street Glide, 720 on the Road Glide. Tank size is 22.7 litres, which is plenty for some big mileages, 200 plus miles. The other difference, by the way, sorry, well I remember, sorry this is a bit random, the other difference between the Street Glide and the Road Glide, of course, is the riding position. The Road Glide has got much more upright bars, and you sit much further back in the bike, whereas the Street Glide, we're much more, I guess it's a much more conventional riding position, which probably could explain why it's the best seller in the UK, I guess, because it is slightly more conventional. So, I think I've done a full tour of the spec and the differences. I've nattered about clocks and stereos and everything else. Yeah, good. Right, so the last thing to mention before I shut up is the price. And there's no sugarcoating this one. It's expensive. Harleys are expensive. And so the Street Glide, which is slightly cheaper of the two, is, let me get this right now, is, I think it's 26.8. I've rounded it up by £5, so I think it's 26,795. That's a big sum. And the Road Glide is a little bit more expensive still. I think that's 27,300, and I think I've rounded that up by about £5 as well. Yeah, £27,300. So you know that's a lot of wonga, but it's a hell of a lot of motorbike. But I'm going to find out just how much of a hell of a lot of motorbike it is as we progress through the day. So yeah, I'm looking forward to riding the Road Glide a bit more, and riding this fella a bit more, concentrating on riding rather than yakking, and I'll come back to you. I will have a bit more of a verdict for what it's worth. Well, what a fantastic day here in the south of France. What a beautiful place. If you want to go touring, I suggest coming down here and trying the ambience and the light and the sound and the smell. There's something special about this place. Maybe it's just the Gallic shrug, I don't know, but I love it down here. And if you're going to come touring, you might as well come on one of Harley's 2024 tourers, the Road Glide or the Street Glide. Now, as I said in the commentary, I think we all have a little bit of Harley in us at some point in our biking lives. I know I spent most of my motorcycling career back in the 90s riding sports bikes, not really giving Harley much of a consideration, but I also know that by now at this stage of life, a lot of my friends have sort of come to Harley through sports bikes, through naked street bikes. They've eventually graduated, even if they just want to try it, to find out what it's about. Because as I say, we have all got memories of Harley in the culture of motorcycling. And it's also true what I said, that you can't really judge Harley Davidson by the criteria
that you normally judge other motorbikes by, because it is a subculture unto itself. They are a big law unto themselves. So any consideration you have about handling or about performance, it's all kind of relative to the fact that you are riding a Harley. It's that image. You can't get away from it. And again, 20 years ago, it would have been a bit naff to sort of say that for a lot of people. But now it's legitimate. So anyway, enough of that guff. Empirically, let's try and put some sort of value on what these two bikes are about. And so today we've been riding on some fairly bumpy back roads here in just the side of Marseille. If you were going to launch a bike and test its ride quality, this is where you do it, because there's some, you know, if your bike weighs a lot and the suspension's not brilliant, you can run out of ground clearance quite quickly and you find yourself skating off towards the side of the road. And it's fair to say that last year in 2023, I spent a fair bit of time on Honda's Goldwing, which is one of the rivals for, I guess, these bikes. Harley certainly say it's a consideration. And empirically, the Goldwing is a fantastic machine. It is so potent, it handles its weight so well, it performs so well for its mass and its size. It's so civilized, you know, the heated grips and the DCT gearbox and the technology surrounding the bike. You know, at point to point, if you wanted to be quick about it, then you'd say, you know, the Honda is the thing to have. But it's not about that. If you're going to spud about relaxing on a cruiser, this kind of ticks the box because it's got Harley on the tank and it has that feel. So anyway, so let's talk about handling and let's talk about engine first, actually, because that is a significant part of what this bike is about. It's fast. It's a lot quicker. 105 horsepower. You could say that's the same as Honda's new Africa Twin. So in terms of actual sort of performance, that's where we're looking. Obviously, we're hauling quite a bit more weight with these fellas. But the torque figure, 130 pound-foot of torque, that is a lot. And it does just grunt. Again, if you haven't tried a Harley, you open the throttle and the thing just goes from nowhere. One of the side effects of having that much power is it does tend to run out of revs quite quickly. So if you are gunning it, where they've tuned the engine up, it does sort of bump into the red line and you need the next gear quite quickly. You do have to throw gears at them. But the engine has got a lot of life in it. It can overtake. And it's not like Harleys of old. This thing is civilized. The motor feels smooth, it feels potent, it feels controllable. In sport mode, the throttle is a little bit snatchy. It's not helped by the fact that to reach the mode button, it's on the right-hand side of the bar cluster, and you have to sort of take your hand off the grip and reach your thumb across to get to it, which kind of interrupts your flow a little bit. It's a bit tricky. There are some tiny little user details like that, again, which you can caveat by saying, well, it's a Harley. If you want that experience, that's part of it. But anyway, engine goes like a good one. No problem there. A lot more performance from the previous model, that is for sure. Chassis-wise, again, ride quality is improved. There are bumps are still there. You can still feel them. It's still a long wheelbase bike. It still weighs a good old chunk with its, 368 kilos, I think, for the street, 380 for the road glide. And, you know, yeah, if you go tanking it around a corner, you are going to run out of ground clearance and you are going to start to run into problems. But again, why are you riding a Harley like that? You just wouldn't do it. So chassis-wise, you do feel there is an improvement in ride quality. And again, the edges, maybe it's I don't know if there actually are showers. I know they are on the CVOs. But anyway, the edges are taken off the bumps. It is just smoothed out a little. It does feel, again, relatively speaking, much, much more civilized. Chassis is a good thing. Electronics, there's so many buttons on this thing. You can't go through them all in one trip, no matter how long it is. It'll take you forever to get to the bottom of it. Certainly the multimedia setup, there's tons of stuff you can do with it. The sound is good. You can certainly hear this thing at speed. So yeah, plenty of electronics to get into. And the screens are perfectly pleasant to look at. They're a little bit wide. I'm not quite sure about wide screens because you tend to have to sort of move your eyes to get it all in. And really with a bike, you just want to look down and look up again. But yeah, a pretty view. So electronics, all good. In terms of comfort, we haven't done hundreds and hundreds of miles today. We've done, I don't know, was it 110 kilometers, I think. We're going to ride them again tomorrow and do a little bit more. Hard to get a feel. But it certainly feels like something where you can just sit back, cruise and be comfortable. So let's get down to also the other thing I want to talk about is the differences between the two bikes because they're actually more significant than it seems. Although the platforms are the same, the handling is the same, the chassis is pretty much the same, the riding position makes a big difference. Now the Street Glide sells many more in the UK, about 70-30 Harley say, which kind of surprises me because the riding position is a little bit more conventional, whereas with the Road Glide, you've got more of a kind of cruiser vibe. So you sit back and the bars come back to you. It kind of fits the ethos of the bike a bit better. So for me, and also you haven't got the weight on the steering of all this thing. You've just got the bars as they are, and the fairing is frame mounted, which is why the bike weighs a little bit more, because there's some substantial metal work going on down there. But the steering's a bit lighter. The riding position kind of makes a bit more sense with the vibe of the bike. It just feels a bit more in keeping. So I'm kind of a bit surprised. I know it's a little bit more expensive, or it is this year. Let's get on to prices. So Street Glide, £26,795. Road Glide, £27,295. Yes, that is a lot of money. Now, you've got to say, the Road Glide is 500 quid less than it was last year. So that's with a bigger engine, more electronics, better fairing, better screen. Street Glide is £1,000 less than it was last year, which kind of makes you wonder if last year's bikes were a bit overpriced. And if you had bought one last year, you'd be feeling a bit salty about that. But anyway, they are cheaper than they were last year. There is a couple of caveats. Basically, the bikes that we were riding, anything that isn't grey is 500 quid more. And if you want the black engine rather than the chrome engine, that's another 1,800 quid. But so that's kind of where it is. And how it sits in the market, I was talking about the Goldwing earlier. The Goldwing's 25,599, so effectively 25.5 grand. It's in the ballpark of these two. And it's pointless me trying to tell you which one is the one that you would rather ride. You've got to find out for yourself. If you want to experience what a Harley can offer, there's only one place you can get it, Harley Davidson. And so really, I think that's a thing that bikers, most of us, have to find out at some point in our lives. Is this something that we want to ride? And like I say, if you offered me one of these to come to the south of France, I certainly wouldn't turn you down. Right. That's enough of me rabbiting. I hope that's given you a little bit of insight into what these bikes are about. Probably not enough. So ask me questions down below and I will answer them as often as I can. And all that remains for me to say is get your insurance from Bennett's, become a Bike Social member and take advantage of all the offers that they've got. And thank you very much for watching.
Bunch of old men climbing up some rocks.
What's all this about? I'm keeping my helmet on.
Don't think that's going to save you.
No, I'm not going up there. You going up there?
No.
Yeah.
Don't want going up, it's coming down.
True. I feel like I've achieved.